So welcome. This is going to be a live on how neurology has not caught up with what's going on, what's always been around actually, but what is really going on in changes. So I was having kind of a debate with a person who is so impressed with Bruce Lipton and what he has to say about theta waves and beta waves and gamma waves. And my instincts and again, instincts, okay? Not beta, intuition. So I went to ChatGPT because you know what? I needed to dissect what I knew was wrong. And I needed some analytical data. And so I'm going to share with you the breakdown. We know that beta waves are not really present in children. Okay, we're going to go with what we know. Theta is very dominant. It's about 4 to 8 hertz, and it really encompasses imagination, imaginative play, and fantasy, and thinking you're a princess, and suddenly your little piece of wood, an area of the woods is a castle. I see a unicorn, things of that nature. That's the concept, okay? We're talking about what science is doing. Now, let me preface this discussion with saying that I have sat with neurologists and psychologists and psychiatrists and, doctors and therapists. And the problem that we have in the way we are trying to not heal people is that none of these different factions are talking to each other. See, that's the problem we're having. And why I know this is because I wish I remember the man's name, but he was a PhD in therapy. And he said that the problem he was having, I think he was out of UCLA or USC, I forgot which one. But anyway, he said the problem they were having in making strides in understanding the brain, because I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a time not long ago, I'd say 20 years ago, when they thought that the brain was cemented. The cortex was cemented by the time you were 25, and there was no way. And the way we learned that was not true was from traumatic brain injuries, where sectors of the brain were literally destroyed, sectors of speech, sectors of movement, and the brain was able to map out a new path, and speech came back and movement came back from wars, traumatic brain injuries in wars, strokes, and so on. That was my first opening into the brain. And this is why I went to this talk, to find out. So let me go back to what Bruce Lipton was saying. He was saying that 7-year-old, back to what Bruce Lipton was saying. He was saying that 7-year-olds have lower frequencies, which makes no sense. But let's continue. And that it is theta dominant in the 4 to 8 hertz. And again, it implies creativity, imaginations. You can suggest ability. This is why he says, why people say that children are highly impressionable at this age, believing in Father Christmas. They're impressionable because of us as adults. When you're a good teacher, parent, mentor, you don't suggest anything. You ask them. You ask them what they see. You ask them what they feel. And then you're no longer suggesting anything to them. You're excavating out of them. Here's why I'm saying that. Because we have data of children at around this age, as a matter of fact, and younger, okay? At the age of 3, 4, 5, remembering their past lives in detail. And I've talked about it before in a couple lives, but I'll bring it up again. There was a particular case that a French magazine called Paris Match did an article in the late 60s of a kid born in Calcutta, when it was still called Calcutta. And he remembered his past life. And his parents took him to go back to the village. And sure enough, he knew his wife's name, his son's names, and he knew the neighbor who owed him money. You can't make this shit up. How is this theta? How is this suggestible? That's insane. There are many, many cases of people remembering, and children remembering their past lives. Some you could never prove. You had to just take their word for it. But in some, it was proven. Let me continue. Developing alpha waves around 8 to 12 hertz. Alpha waves linked to relaxed awareness and learning begins to increase. But it's not dominant. Theta is still dominant. And lower beta waves at around 12 to 30 hertz are linked to focus, attention, problem solving, and conscious thought. Cynicism, logical thinking, at that point sets itself up. It's established, okay? And I'm getting somewhere with this. Trust me, I'm getting somewhere. The key difference between 7-year-olds that are supposedly, I'm quoting, suggestible because of their imaginative state makes them more receptive to learning but less analytical. Let's continue. Adults 25 years and older have a stronger beta wave enabling critical thinking, sustained focus, and reduced suggestibility. Okay. This bored the shit out of me because I know what I know. And what do I know? Well, I know that there are kids out there in the world, right, who literally have massively high IQs. So, and these kids are 5, 6. I mean, look at Mozart. Mozart, I think, wrote his first opera. Am I correct? Or his first chamber music? A very complex piece of music at the age of 4. Let's just cut it to that. Where did that come up? How can we explain that? If theta is connected to imagination and so on and so forth. So I said, what happens is if a child has 150 IQ, and it doesn't mean logical thinking. It doesn't mean problem solving. It often, so I asked ChatGPT, tell me about that, because I know for a fact that there are kids being incarnated that are actually plugging into the Akashic records, and they're getting, it's almost like having access to a memory bank of every knowledge, every thought. It literally is. And they're downloading mathematical equations, and they're downloading, it has nothing to do with beta. Beta is 3D. Theta is our spiritual truth, our truest, honest self. That's my opinion. It doesn't mean I'm correct. It means that's my download for me. And so what I asked was, explain that to me. And of course, it thought that this was about intuition, psychic energy, spiritual awareness. At that point, the theta waves are also the state to access deep meditation, hypnosis, altered state of consciousness where the subconscious mind is more accessible. And this is where we lose our ability to connect with the Akashic records, where the veils start, like literally shutting down, and we're not able to access. For example, I'll give you an example. The ability to take a test and never open a book. There are people out here who literally will never open a book, or they have photographic memory. You can pull out a book on the shelf and say 172, and they'll tell you exactly what it says on 172. There are people out there in the world. How is that possible? It certainly is not coming from beta, in my humble opinion. Okay? It's coming from something else. What is that something else? It's something that is less... It's not limited by fences of what is logical and what is possible. And this is where we need to get back to breaching the rigidity of beta and thinking it's a higher frequency because it maps out on their little machines at higher hertz. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense. And so it's frustrating to me because I feel as if science has not understood the brain. Clearly it hasn't, because when they opened Einstein's brain, and they were like disappointed that his brain was not the large brain they expected him to have. It was a shock to them. So remember, Einstein was Asperger's. He couldn't talk until he was about 4.5. And yet it took a while before he was able to evolve into the scientist, the spiritual scientist that he became. So what is it that is most important for us to cultivate in our children? Is it beta or is it theta? And my opinion is that it's theta, because as we allow them to understand how to use the theta waves to tap into the infinite resources of the Akashic library, they don't need the kind of education we're offering them. Science will be downloaded. I read, this is last year, you can look it up on my YouTube channel. Last year I read From the Mind Power into the 21st Century, the Holographic Universe, where scientists, very famous scientists that you know by name, I can't remember them right now, but they fucking couldn't figure it out in equations. The logical mind was hitting walls. And the minute they started dreaming or sleeping, they would literally in sleep come up with the answer, wake up straight out of a sleep and have the equation, the answer to their problem. And the names that were mentioned in the Mind Power into the 21st Century was staggering. Names I didn't even know. I know that Einstein's EMC square came to him in a dream. I know that he wrote letters to his granddaughter saying they're not ready to read what we have. And those letters are, if I'm still correct, at least I heard about this 20 years ago, that they will not be revealed or published for years to come until we collectively catch up with that kind of frequency of understanding that the most impossible shit is possible. Mainstream neuroscience acknowledges that children's brains are uniquely plastic and receptive, but it doesn't fully explain how some children appear to know things beyond their years. Well, of course they don't, because they're not tapping in. They're tapping into the mechanics of these brains we fucking have, instead of working with the knowledge that we know from, say, Michael Newton and Dolores Cannon in quantum hypnotherapy and Newton's LBL, Lives Between Lives, to find out what the fuck's going on, which means that, of course, a 3-year-old is going to know more than it fucking should know. And the reason why, a great example is Matthias de Stefano. How do you explain that? And so we're so, like, to me, it's actually unconscious and almost dangerous to lay down our ability to think for ourselves to people. I mean, there's no shade or hate on Dr. Lipton, not at all. He's done great work and he's done great things for the planet. But what I do know is that we're so corralled into these little fences of what has been proven by science, as opposed to us allowing the downloads of our own knowing to come through, and for us to collectively cultivate real ideas that come from sources that we can't right now, at this moment, prove on paper, but we know without being able to explain where it came from. And we have proven documentations of scientists who found their answers through dreams and forms of that nature. Found their answers through dreams and forms of that nature. Through meditation, maybe through prayer, whatever. And this is why I'm having a problem with the limitations. I can tell you, as a child, I was not suggestible. Matthias de Stefano, who remembered his past lives, remembers the actual names of Egypt, his name, the actual name of Atlantis, and on, and other planets. At a very young age, 5, 6, 7, is something that we are blessed to, receive as an example of what's possible. Okay? And then it can get very twisted, like, oh my God, what's his name? Sam Vatkin. Sam Vatkin is a man who is actually a self-proclaimed malignant narcissist. He's got 3 PhDs. And as a child, he was the magic child. But he was having such abuses in his home life and such accolades in the public view that there was a split, basically. And he developed into this narcissist. I mean, he's written a book about it called Malignant Narcissist. And he's also developed process of healing that kind of trauma with what he's called cold therapy, using childhood therapy to heal the trauma that creates a malignant narcissist, for example. But my point is that had he been allowed to develop normally, organically, with love and nurturing, non-judgment, no control, no bullshit, through the theta of his brain at the age of 6, 5, God knows what he would have invented. And so as parents, we need to stop putting these fucking people on a pedestal because they have a PhD. Dr. Joe Dispenza has proven, working with neurologists all over the world, what happens to the brain when you meditate for just 2 minutes. And what happens when the brain pops into bliss after, say, 20, 30 minutes. You can actually map it. What we're doing is we're not asking the right questions. And that's the key to science, asking the right questions. But if we are working with scientists who are still being taught the status quo of the bullshit of 50 years ago, you can bet they're not asking the right questions. So theta, which is hypnosis, right? Where you're able to see things and feel things and remember names, is a reality. It's a real experience. It's as real as you and I looking at our hands in front of us right now. So if that's true, if theta is the wave that we need to enter to, say, open the subconscious mind, and to be honest, fuck the subconscious mind, breach even that and go beyond, right? To go into realms of our beginnings, realms of what really matters for us to heal. Then shouldn't we actually try to encourage that in our children? Not to create a Delulu world for them, but for them to understand that they can actually live their life in balance between their theta gifts and only switching on the beta when they need to, say, to write a check for the mortgage or the rent, and go right back into theta, heart frequency, downloads, divine guidance, seeing people who have died on the other side, saying hi to grandma who died 100 years ago, an ancient ancestor from this life, past life, future incarnations, whatever. Wouldn't we want that? Wouldn't we want that for the future generations, rather than to stay into the status quo of the limited ideas of these old mechanical thinkers who really actually don't want to tap into theta in their scientific studies? So one of the questions I asked was, what happens when they shift into beta, children? And it said around 9 to 12 years old, children's brains shift into a beta dominant state, meaning they begin thinking more analytically, questioning mystical or intuitive insights, and filtering out unprovable knowledge. Did you hear that? It makes me want to cry. We're not growing a population of intuitive children because it's unprovable. And yet, is it? Is it? That's my question to you. Is it unprovable? Children with exceptional high IQs or heightened intuitive abilities may be more open to receiving non-local information, whether from ancestral memory, Akashic records, or interdimensional consciousness. What happens when they shift into beta is that it becomes like a locked engine, locked into one static place. And because logic is considered to reality, and reality is considered to be connected to logic, they slip right out of theta permanently into the cemented, right, the cement boots of beta and gamma. So the trick, as teachers, and when I say teachers, I don't mean fucking school, okay? I mean you and I teaching. Teachers, parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, you know who you are. Mentors. Our trick is to go Shaolin with them. It's to teach them the connection of the wind, the connection with earth, the connection to ground yourself, the connection to trust what their divine downloads are. Some kids are actually coming up with answers to mathematical or geometric geometry, problems. They're coming, in other words, the teacher is asking the kid to come up with the answer in 5 steps because that's the protocol. This is what schools do, right? And the kid finds the answers in 2 steps and is called a cheater. Because math is a spiritual language, when a child has traumatic connection with math and shaming, it can actually close that portal off. And yet, some of these kids are coming up with solutions with 2 steps, sometimes 1 step. It's not logical, but if you let them write it down, there it is. There's the answer. How did you come up? Well, it's boom, boom, boom. There it is. And there it is. There's no doubt. There it is. And because education is created to collapse free thinking and to literally punch out any creativity out of a child, any answers that are not within the scope of what they want will be deemed a cheater, or do it this way. Do it this way or you're not going to get an A+. Do it my way or the highway. And this is why such children are growing up in a confused state of anguish as they hit puberty. Not only now are they hormonally being challenged by their own bodies, right? But they're also now having to literally lobotomize their own spirit, or else. And then they get into the teenage years and the burgeoning sexuality and the confusion and the exposure to a lot of inappropriate shit in our country, Anglo-Saxon countries, and some other countries I won't mention. And they are asked to just not be themselves. And it starts from this completely there is a sense of disrespect in the theta consciousness. And can you imagine if you were allowed to do that? Do you understand that psychics are going into the theta waves? Psychics are not looking at logic. They're looking at what is being shown to them that on paper is not logical. When the FBI or the police department calls on a psychic to find the remains of a human being, there's no logic to how they found him. They certainly didn't commit the crime. And they know it. Right? But they now see through the eyes of the perpetrator to find the victim. How is that fucking logical in a beta brain? It isn't. It's pure theta. It's trust. It's beyond intuition. It's just it's almost like they're dictating, the light beings from the other side, and you're tapping in, and the Akashic record keepers are giving you what you need so you can find the person. It's the same process used for remote viewing. And I don't understand why we're not getting this shit. Like, why are we still playing 1970s game with what we know as we go through the ascension? Why are we still educating our kids to fucking play dumb? It's like telling a pretty woman, yeah, don't play too smart. Men don't like that. It's like telling a kid, yeah, don't. It will scare granny or the neighbor or your teacher if you know shit and you can't prove how you know shit. We're not here to cater to people's small identity crisis. We're here now during the ascension to do all we can to literally hack out of these limited ideas of what we can do when we embody these bodies holstered with this fucking brain between our ears. It isn't this that's making us think. It's something higher. Now, if you are just, pushing paper across one end of the room to another, yeah, it's beta. But if you're co-creating something magical in concepts of healing, science, art, and so on, and music, I mentioned Mozart. It's not that little brain. That's why when they basically dissected Einstein, they were like shocked. What the fuck? We thought it'd be bigger. Clearly that wasn't the point, was it? And I think that's the question as parents, as starseeds, we need to understand and demand. You know what I mean? Any questions or comments? I'm sorry, I was looking up and I never look down because it throws me off track. Let me see what else I can read to you. This, by the way, listen to this. Listen to this. This again, chat. What happens when they shift into beta? This is why so many intuitive children lose their ability or suppress them. They are taught that logic is real and their past ways of perceiving reality is not valid. Number one, that is fucking abuse. Two, if a child can stay in touch with their theta access abilities while developing beta wave logic, they can become a rare type of genius, one who merges intuition with reason. Do we really need to merge intuition with reason? I disagree with ChatGPT. Why? Because we don't have to. Why? Because all we have to do is share that intuition. And it will either resonate with some or not. It's that simple. If this intuition produces an actual, material item that can actually show itself, then clearly the intuition was all we needed. And what's interesting is that's what Dr. Joe Dispenza was doing, or still does in his retreats, where he's got people on these probes on their heads, and they get up at, I think, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and they go into these meditations, and they're just mapping their brains, like 300 people mapping their brains. And he is a maverick. The brain is still the wild, wild west, no matter what you think. Psychic powers are what we need to support in our children, because every single one of us had those psychic powers. Every single one of us was born with it. Many of us had, quote unquote, imaginary friends. Some of us now know, holy shit, they weren't imaginary friends. They were guides. They were keeping me company. They were telling me things. They were helping me because I was still too fragile. I was still ungrounded. I could have died at 3, but they were there to help me survive so that I could ground in and stay in. Because on the side note, I don't know if you know this, but in the Vedas, and they talk about this, children up to 7 are completely aligned to the auric field of their mothers until they're 7. That's why the cruelty of having women have to choose to go back to work when the child is 3 months, 4 months, 6 months even. Yes, even 6 months. And it's not good for the child. For the mother to be gone 8 to 9 hours per day, 5 days a week, or 6, God forbid, is not good for the child. And it's funny how they used to promote in this country first 5 years. That shit's done. You know why? Because they know the first 5 years are critical to the child. Rudolf Steiner talks about not even teaching. I don't agree with him, but I think he was brilliant. Rudolf Steiner on the in his the way he wanted to educate kids, the way he's an influence in Waldorf school, which are highly elite schools, by the way. I think it's like 45 G's a year. Okay, we're talking about kindergarten to 8th grade, just on the side note, okay? So, fucking money. But he didn't feel that kids should learn how to read until they were 8. He felt like everything in every room, every chair, every table should be round. Everything should be rounded and magical and rounded. We're not really seriously looking to educate our kids. We're here to bully them into submission to protocols to get them into beta as soon as possible for a reason. We need compliant, submissive workers, not theta thinkers. Theta thinkers. Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? I think it is. I think it's fascinating. Any questions or comments? What's your experience in that realm? Does anybody want to share an experience that I could read to the rest? I remember some of my past lives. Right on. Of course you do. Of course you do. And, people invite. Not invite, excuse me. I saw invite come on. People remember their past lives. I remember my brother remembered past lives. I remember choosing my parents. I had a quote unquote imaginary friend until I realized it wasn't imaginary. There was nothing imaginary. I remember my son telling me he saw his guides. And one day, because I'm psychic, I can see shit. He said, they're over there. I won't describe it because it's personal. But I looked and I went, holy fuck, I see it. And I started describing it to my son. He was saying, yeah, yeah. So that was interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to invite you. I don't know who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
All
okay.
right.
No. I mean, no, feel free to share. No, go ahead, share. Apparently, you're supposed to be here. Go ahead. Tell me, what did you want to share?
Oh, no, I was just saying that I did, as a child, especially, I did remember many, at least two recent, probably, but I suppose that the most recent one was when I remembered myself being unalived before entering this body, current body. But that
Mm-hmm.
was many centuries ago, that particular
Mm-hmm.
one that I kept remembering. And it was so vivid. And I was such a young child. And my parents were a little frightened, a lot frightened. They
Right.
had to take me to different, even to doctor or different kind of, other kind of doctors to
Right,
see what's
right.
going
I'm
on.
glad you're
And
sharing that. I'm sorry you
yeah.
went through that, but I'm
And
glad you're sharing that. Please tell what happened when you visited the doctors. What went down? What was the final takeaway for them?
well, they didn't understand. The regular doctors didn't really understand what's going on. They said probably it's imagination. Maybe she saw some movies, but no, that wasn't the case. It was medieval times, and I remember that that particular person's name was Helen, and I kept seeing her and talking about the church where the cathedral where she's a nun over there, and a witch instead, because she was
Mm-hmm.
healing and she was doing very good things. And instead, they basically, I don't know how TikTok friendly I can speak, but they unalived her,
No,
persecuted
I'm
her.
sorry.
But yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately. But then many years later, I realized that was actually myself in a different body back then.
gotcha.
It was so
That's
real.
wild.
I remembered
No,
everything.
but yeah,
It was horrible, but sweet though at the
yeah.
same time.
Were you able to kind of
Sweet
like
memories.
yeah, right. Were you able to like heal that, like purge that energy now that you realize it was you?
Once I realized, it's like I constantly had an urge to go help her. Like, where is she? And then I was told that it's actually myself in before I got out of that body, and then I was now in this body as a child. This was a new
Very
body.
cool.
Yes, that was very healing experience that helped a lot to realize what's happening with me. And then it runs through our family that we are seers,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I was a child. But my father was that way, and until he passed, and my specifically my father's side, my two aunts were like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's side, my grandfather was a healer, and he was a seer, and he actually, something happened to him during a massacre
Mm-hmm.
in another country, and him and 11 children survived, and they were found by Arab sheikhs, and they actually took them to save them, their lives, but they took them and they helped them to be like a servant in the house. But that particular one that took my grandpa, he didn't have a son, so he kind of adopted him as a son, and he gave him a lot of knowledge, almost all his knowledge about how to do things like I don't want to say witchcraft, but
Yeah.
basically, a lot of knowledge. And look in the mirror and tell who's your enemy, show you actually the person would walk into the mirror. This is kind of freaky stuff. And show you, even though the person is not there, the person, my grandpa would be able to show the person who the person is, that is his enemy, his whatever. Any questions you had, he could, through the mirror, he could show you things. It was
Yeah.
so insane. And then
Yeah.
he could talk to the snakes, and all animals would obey him. Whatever he would say, they would do, and he could communicate with them and understand them. So many crazy stuff he was able to do, and I don't know if it passed from them to me, but especially when I was a child, I was doing so many crazy things, telekinesis, all kinds of stuff. I could move things. I could see through the wall. Through I could see what you ate, or what inside your organs and stuff like that. But then, as
Hello?
them, it's just once. I believe once. Yeah, hello.
No, yeah, I hear you now. Oh, what happened? What the hell happened? That's bizarre. Okay, if you want to come back, let me know. This is very strange. Let's see. I'll bring you back on. Let me see. So you can finish your story. Okay. That was weird how you were dropped.
I guess we're having. I'm having
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
a picture, but yeah, I believe as time passed, I grew up. As soon as I felt that growing up
Mhm.
happening,
Yeah.
I felt I lost a lot of sense and connection to the to everything, to the source, to the all seeing eye kind of thing.
Right. No, I
Where
hear
it
you.
felt like I knew everything. I
Right.
could I could know. I could tap into the source and
Yeah, you're coming in and out. I'm gonna, okay. I'm gonna,
oh, sorry.
yeah, let me continue with what I was talking about. Thank you for sharing those stories. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're, yeah. Um, those, what Paula is sharing, which was very gracious of her to share her story, is interesting because even Anne Rice wrote books on the concept of these what they call psychic gifts. I call them skill sets that we all have. All of us have it, but there are lineages where they were more powerful. Just like you choose a lineage where everyone has blue eyes or violet eyes or amber eyes or whatever. So there is a genetic component to that as well, and that's why certain souls would incarnate into certain family dynamics to actually access those those skill sets and those tools with more ease than others. And I know what you mean. There are people, there are healers that have been hunted down, even in the 1980s and early 90s, hunted down, coming out of the Philippines, who actually could look at your body and tell you exactly where you had nodules and issues and tumors and things like that, who could do what they call psychic surgery. And there are people that took advantage, and they were shysters, don't get me wrong, but there were people who could actually, and still do, can actually do that. Remove it by literally putting their fingers within your body and removing what you have. There are people that can actually touch you, literally an index finger on you with the intention of healing whatever you got, and heal you. And they're out there. And it's been proven. But the powers that be don't want that to be known to the level that people like me and Paula and all of us who Andromeda Flame and Water Bear Medicine, all of us who read articles about this, who have read books about this, who that documented. But in terms of the 8 billion people living and walking and sleeping on this planet, it's not given accessibility to them because it is not in the beta consciousness. It's not in the logical mindset, which is a problem. And so we are the minority. The difference between how we lived in that ability to move things and see things and telepathy and astral traveling, and the list goes on and on and on, is we are probably the safest time on the planet to do that. I think the last time we were safe to do that, obviously, was during the Lemurian and Atlantean, and even 7,000 years after that. The minute Orthodox religions came into play, it was game over. And it was dangerous to have those gifts or skill sets. So I think it's wonderful that you shared. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments? So, yeah, my father was also a person. Here's the thing about logical minds. My father was a psychic where he could actually see people. He could tell when they could die. And he had that skill set at a very young, as a teenage boy. And finally, he shut it off. He just couldn't handle it anymore. And the way people shut it off today is through pharma. I had a friend who could do things that were extraordinary, and she couldn't handle hearing people's thoughts. And she wasn't crazy. She wasn't delulu at all. And she ended up using pharma to lobotomize that ability. So it is quite something. So any questions or comments about a new way of approaching how we raise our children? Is there any questions or comments on that? Any questions or comments? Because I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You must have some opinions, I would imagine, on this. So what's the takeaway? Well, the takeaway is to basically do what you need to do and be the mind that is open to allowing children to speak their experiences, to see ghosts. I remember 3 years old seeing my grandfather sitting right there, and he'd been dead for about a year. What children see and what they experience. And again, we make the mistake as the elders, as the adults, to think that because they're in the embodiment, do you see the body of this child here? For all you know, this child, this photo of this child is older than you are as a soul. And we keep forgetting that these children, some of them are ancient souls. They were born as a soul before you were born, or perhaps before I was born, before many of us were born. That's their souls being born right now, coming and taking these bodies for pleasure. They want to enjoy being children again. The magic of being a child, rolling down the hill, enjoying the snow, enjoying the magic of wonder, and then getting into the business of becoming the starseed, or being, rather, not becoming, being the starseed that they are, to come and help shift this planet into a permanent grid of 5D and above consciousness for the collective. Some of them will be walk-ins. Some of these souls that are coming in are walk-ins. What that means is they don't want the nonsense of being diapered and fed and going to kindergarten school. They don't want any of that bullshit. They want none of it. They will take over the bodies of people who are done. They're dealing with depression. They're just fucking done. And there is a soul contract to that. It's almost like the passing of the baton. And the soul leaves of the original person who was birthed into that body, if you get what I'm saying. And the soul that's a power soul comes in at the age of 40, 50. They might do 10 years. They might do 20 years. But it's a 180. It's a person that used to drink. You'll see it. It's a person that used to drink, or used to take drugs, or used to gamble, or whatever. They were slovenly and fucking up and bumping into the walls of life and not getting anything done. And suddenly they do a 180 and they start getting involved in, first of all, improving themselves and actually reaching on a community level or a global level, or they become influencers of writing books or what have you. We've always had walk-ins. But we're going to have more and more walk-ins as we progress, as we walk together towards the ascension of this planet. And that's another thing that's going to be very interesting. And the reason why that's going to be necessary is because of what I described about what we do to the children who are in theta consciousness and beating them into the submissive frequency of beta. At best beta, rarely gamma, in my opinion, from what I've seen, just to become the little ants, the worker bees we need them to be. And that's why some of these souls, they're pure. They have not been brainwashed. They don't have amnesia. They know exactly who they are. They know exactly who they are. There's no, oh, now they've entered this body, they've forgotten who they are. No, they enter the body, they take over, and the ultimate ego personality of the person who originally, was born into this body, grew up, went to school, went to college, whatever, that personality is still there. But people will say, I don't know, Joe, like you're not the same, man. We used to go out in the bars, and Joe doesn't want that because Joe is learning how to fucking meditate. Joe, it's not even learning how to meditate. He's fucking meditating an hour every day, overnight. Joe's now a vegan. Joe's fucking running 10 miles at 5 o'clock in the morning. He's up, and by 7 a.m. he's done with his whole half the day. He's in crypto. He's investing. He's also looking, because money is freedom in the 3D world. But then he's trying to figure out what needs to be changed on this planet. So he starts writing books or doing speaking engagements about manifesting, about, the mind and how it convinces the mind to stay small and not to hack out of the experience of having lost in jobs, in money, in relationships, and that today is a new day. 2025 means that everything in my past means nothing, because 2025 is me establishing a new self, a new image for myself, a new way of living my life in the most authentic, passionate way. So these walk-ins are going to be coming in more and more. It's going to be a wave of them. You might even meet one. You might even look in the public arena and go, wait, hang on. This politician or this author or this actor used to be an asshole, and now suddenly they give a shit about the planet. What the hell happened? It could be a walk-in. And that's very woohoo. Trust me, I know. But I remember reading about walk-ins when I was 14. And in the 1940s, late 30s and 40s, they were actually making movies, I swear to God, about walk-ins. One of the most famous movie is called Heaven Can Wait. I've mentioned in my lives before. Heaven Can Wait. There was an original version in the early 40s, I believe, or late 30s, and they remade it in the 1970s with Warren Beatty, which you can see. It's called Heaven Can Wait, and it's about a walk-in, and it's a comedy, ha ha hoo hoo. But I can tell you that Ruth Montgomery, who was a channeler and a psychic extraordinaire, wrote about walk-ins in Strangers Among Us, her book. So there's a lot of data that you can actually study, and we are our ancestors, absolutely. And I love it. Some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community's experience. I'm so glad. Whoever you are, F off. Anyway, I want to thank you for being here. Paula, thank you again for sharing your experience. Any last questions or comments? I'm going to shut it down now. Only not because I'm, at anything. I'm tired. It's late. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. But I wanted to share this message for you because there's only, I don't know how many of you are there. Let me look. It's always 5. I love that number. You 5 are here for a reason. It's your message. Pay attention to the children that are in your lives. Nurture them. Educate their parents. Educate their grandparents. Speak out about it. Do videos about it. But we need to do an absolute pivot on the bullshit of neurology, psychiatry, psychology, and this idea that children, we're still dumbing down children. I can't fucking believe that we're still doing that in the 21st century. But we are. And so we need to understand that there's going to be some of us who need to homeschool these children. Some of these children should not be put in private or public schools at all. And to connect yourself, if you decide to do that yourself, or if you know someone who's kicking rocks about homeschooling their kids, help support them. Because what's happening is that we have lost many, many, many incredible psychic healers, powerhouses, inventors, Einsteins, to the machine, the educational machine, that have lobotomized the very sense, the very gifts out of our kids. And so whatever we can do, fucking do it. Just get it done. Go out there, spread the word. And this live will be uploaded on my YouTube channel. Follow me on YouTube, Sacred Intimacy Tarot. Check me out there. You can look at the lives. We also do lives every Thursday between 2 or 3. It depends. But typically 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock on Thursdays. And when I say 2, 3, I'm talking about East, I can't even talk, East Coast time on the Sacred Masculine. We have the Feeling Tarot and Water Bear Manderson, who come in to bring their beautiful, sacred, divine, masculine energy to the table to talk about esoteric ideas about the gender wars, about the dynamics of the feminine and masculine, about many things. We also have a book club where we read esoteric books. We just finished on the Gnostic Gospel by Eileen Pagel. We're cracking open The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. If you want to join our book club, hit me up on any of my videos. Actually message me privately, to be honest with you, or go on my website and let me know you want to join. And you're more than welcome. We meet, we're going to meet, our next meeting is going to be on I believe the 29th, 30th. And it's good. It's important if you are going through this journey of ascension. It's important for you to either create your own situation, your own tribe of people, or to join a tribe of people that are talking esoteric ideas, reading books, cranking up the flames of creativity, and asking really hard questions to come up with really clear answers, downloaded answers, not logical answers. Most of the answers we're coming out on paper would sound absolutely not logical to you, maybe, but it's logical to us because it's expansive and we're plugging in the holes of the psychopathy of these religions that have really done a number on our root chakra, our heart chakra, our throat chakra, the ability to speak without fear, our third eye and our crowns, and an ability to just stand in our truth and remembering our incarnations as children and why this mattered. All of these things. We talk about many things. The book after that will be Women Who Run with the Wolves. And we usually spend like maybe 60 minutes to 90 minutes, and it's pretty intense. So if you want to join, let me know. Blake. Anyway, so moving on. Okay. Have a great night. Namaste. Be well. Again, check me out on YouTube at Sacred Intimacy Tarot. Namaste.